Hello there and welcome to another video by Dan the Gaming Man. One of my first videos on the channel was titled Sega Mega Drive / Genesis, the top 10 essential games. Check the card in the top right corner if you haven't seen that one yet. Today it's by far my most watched video and has received over 100 comments from viewers, mostly telling me about the games that they would have included in their top 10s. So this gave me an idea. What if I put together a list of top 10 essential Mega Drive / Genesis games according to you? Before we look at your countdown, I want to remind you of what I said before talking about my own top 10, and that is that it isn't easy to narrow down the list of around 1,000 games released for the system between 1988 and 1997 to just 10 games. In fact, you, the viewers, mentioned 90 different games in total. I've added up the mentions, plus using polls on my community tab, I've been able to rank them. There will be a few honourable mentions as well. Now, let's dive into your top 10. Number 10 is Alicia Dragoon. This is a side-scrolling adventure game that has players controlling the protagonist, Alicia, who seeks out to avenge the death of her father. Using lightning that can be shot out of her hands, you have to be a little bit strategic with your attacks, as Alicia's energy can be depleted if you use a gung-ho approach. An interesting feature of the game is a group of 4 different pets that accompany you on the journey. They can help you deflect enemy attacks, and they all have their own unique attack also. The game is fairly hectic, with lots of enemies attacking you constantly, but it is a lot of fun just blasting your way through a level. The game was praised by critics at the time of its release, with Mean Machines magazine giving it a score of 87%. Number 9, according to commenters and subscribers, was NHL 94. It is the third game in the franchise and apparently featured a vast array of improvements on the previous 2 installments. The game featured 4 game modes: Exhibition, Playoffs, Best of 7 Playoffs and Shootout. The game is enjoyable as it has a nice clean vertical camera angle that seamlessly floats as you move up and down the ice. The game includes all of the teams and rosters from the 93-94 season. One thing that struck me when playing it was the music. As you play a match, there's a whole host of organ songs being piped into the arena. From the little I know of NHL, this is true to life, so it really adds to the feel of the game. For number 8 of my list, I chose a Disney game. So it's interesting that you also chose a Disney game for your number 8. Aladdin was released for the system in November 1993 as a tie-in to the movie released the year prior. This side-scrolling platform game is good fun as you take control of Aladdin and revisit some of the settings of the movie, whilst chiptune versions of the classic songs play in the background. There's a lot of different pickups in this game, including apples, which can be thrown at enemies, genie tokens and gems, to name a few. This game really holds up today as it still looks incredible and the controls are intuitive and it's really easy to pick up. Number 7 is Shining Force 2. This game was released in 1994 in both Europe and North America, and it is a really good looking tactical role-playing game. It's quite unique when compared to other JRPGs, as it employs a grid system for moving your characters around during the turn-based battle sequences. I never played this game when I was younger, but it received a lot of love in the comments of my top 10 video, and it seems that a lot of people have nostalgia for this one. The Super Nintendo might have been more famous for its list of JRPGs, but this Mega Drive exclusive is as good as any of them in my opinion. And talking of Nintendo, this game, like many others on this list, and my own top 10 for that matter, are available to play on the Nintendo Switch via their Switch Online service. Number 6. From Shining Force to Thunder Force. The two games might share similar titles, but they couldn't be more different in terms of genre and gameplay. Thunder Force 4 is a horizontal shoot-'em-up that has players assuming the role of a fighter pilot, defending the entire human race from extinction at the hands of the Orn Empire. This game is extremely addictive, and like most horizontal shoot-'em-ups, it sees you take on an endless barrage of enemies. It is a really tough game, but there are plenty of power-ups available to help you get through the unforgiving levels. This game received some ridiculously high review scores at the time of its release, including an almost perfect 96.5% from North American publication GameFan. Toe Jam and Earl was your number 5 pick. It is a fairly unique looking game, partly due to the 2D game world you explore with either Toe Jam or Earl. The characters themselves are fairly bizarre looking individuals. They are alien rappers who have crash landed on Earth, and you have to help them find parts of their spaceship so they can escape. It is the most 90s feeling game in this list. Reminiscent of channels like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, it makes me think of Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life and similar shows of the time. I'll be honest, it wasn't one that I liked back then, and even to this day I don't fully get the appeal. But again, this was one that got a lot of love in the comments, so it makes it onto your list. It's available on the Nintendo Switch Online as well, if you want to check it out for yourself. Number 4 is Phantasy Star 4, The End of the Millennium, which was appropriately released just in time for the end of the millennium. And just like the other games in the series, it is beloved by JRPG fans who owned a Mega Drive. And all the tropes are here. You've got cute characters, you have towns to explore, there's turn-based combat, and acronyms galore. This game was originally released in December 1993 in Japan, before being brought across to North America in February 1995, and then Europe in December of 1995, which was 2 years after the Japanese release. I'd say I prefer Shining Force 2 to this one, but you can't go wrong with either, to be fair. Number 3 is Shinobi 3. Each of the games in the series got a lot of mentions in the comments of my top 10 list, but the one that seemed to have been the most popular was the third installment. This is a wonderful hack and slash platformer. The game is so smooth compared to the previous games in the franchise, and that makes it a lot of fun to play today. There is something very satisfying about clearing a screen packed full of enemies. This one has been included in the Sega Mega Drive collection, and I will of course leave an affiliate link to that in the description of this video. It's definitely one to check out if you've never played it before. Number 2 is Sonic 3 plus Knuckles. This was a fairly unique game as it involved combining two cartridges together via a system called lock-on technology. Sonic 3 could be slotted into Sonic and Knuckles to make what many commenters consider the ultimate of all Sonic games. I of course had Sonic 2 in my top 10 list, but I'm also a huge fan of this one, and had it not been for my decision to limit my picks to one game per franchise, which I've also done in this video too by the way, then Sonic 3 plus Knuckles might very well have made my top 10. But thanks to the commenters, I got to revisit this gem to capture footage for this very video. It's just a lot of fun to play. Knuckles feels very different to Sonic, and Tails too, as he can climb walls and glide, which I found hard to get right when going back to it. But I am glad that I got to play this for the list, although I still think Sonic 2 is better. Sorry, it's just that's what gives me more nostalgia. Before we look at your number 1 essential game, let's have a quick peek at a few honourable mentions. A few commenters talked about NBA Jam, and I can remember a lot of my friends having this one and being really into it when I was at school. It's a lot of fun in 2-player mode, and it features some legendary NBA stars. I do love the art style from this franchise of games with the big heads. Good times. Landstalker is a fairly interesting game. It isn't really like anything else on this list, visually. The game's cover is definitely trying to catch the eye of the consumers, as the protagonist looks very Link-like. It's a nice little game, this, and I hadn't played it before, but it's one that I do want to spend more time with. Herzog Zwei was brought up a few times in the comments section of my video. This game was developed by Technosoft, just like Thunder Force, which was mentioned earlier. But this one has players exploring in different directions and allows you to switch between a fighter jet and a mech. MUSHA is a frantic arcade vertical shooter. It's a lot of fun, and it's one of those games, like many others in the genre, that has you wanting to just give it one more try. This was never released in Europe, so it was a new one for me, but I'll be going back and playing this game again. Another Disney game. They really did make some good ones, didn't they? Quackshot was one that commenters told me should have been on my list. I did have a little bit of a dig at Donald Duck in my video when discussing World of Illusion, but I do love him really. This one is a really fun platformer. And finally, another platformer, Rocket Knight Adventures. I remember the box art, it's an iconic game cover for sure. This is yet another one that passed me by at the time, but it's a lot of fun to play, and I can see why so many mentioned it as their favourite Mega Drive game. Check it out if you, like me, had never played it before. Now it's time to find out what you, the viewers, told me should have made my list. Here is your number one essential Sega Mega Drive game. With an overwhelming number of mentions, Gunstar Heroes was far ahead of all the competition to be crowned number one of this list. With absolutely stunning visuals, this run and gun game is fast paced and addictive. You can play solo or team up with a friend or sibling for some couch co-op action. I can remember playing this for the first time a few years back with a friend of mine and almost completing it in one sitting. It has a similar feel to Contra or Metal Slug, but the protagonists make me think of Saturday morning cartoons, so if you're anything like me and love playing these old games for a hit of nostalgia, then this game ticks that box. There's a variety to the levels as well, so not only do you run and gun, you'll also find yourself jumping around on the wings of an airplane and riding along in a minecart in some of the later stages. This game, like many others mentioned, is available to play through Switch Online. Although this one didn't make my top 10, it is worthy of our top spot today, definitely one of the best games on the system. Well, that's your top 10 essential games on the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis. What did you miss? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks to those who have commented on my previous video and also voted in my community tab polls. It really helped me rank the games for this video. Like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. I have more videos on the way. Until next time, stay safe and keep gaming.